On the outskirts of Copenhagen lies Gladsaxe Commune, home to the housing project known as Gladsaxe Heights. Beneath the ominous gaze of 1,000 watchful eyes, it was here that Peter Boleslaw Schmeichel laid the foundations for a memorable footballing career. Initially raised down the road in Buddinge, he and his siblings held Polish citizenship until 1970, when they and their father took on Danish nationality. For Danish football, it was a pivotal moment. Fate had lent an almighty hand, and Schmeichel's pursuit of the dream began in time-honoured fashion.
From the very, very first day I ever went to a football practice, I was in goal, and I stayed there ever since. After school every day, we met up on the pitches and we were playing, and we all had favourite players, favourite clubs, and mine was Manchester United. And I thought, well, I look a little bit like Gary Bailey, and so he was one of them. Peter Shilton was another one. I said this many times. Tony Schumacher, the German goalkeeper, I know despite what he did in one particular match, I thought he was brilliant. And then, of course, Sepp Maier.
The young Dane himself, though, was catching the eye and was approached by local side Hero, once again in the shadow of the Gladsaxe projects. Journalist Niels Rasmussen, on the playing staff at the time, saw Schmeichel's future skills already on display.
He has an enormous amount of confidence in himself, and of course that is that, and he's never been afraid. He had a bit of temper already at that time. And another thing was how he picked up the ball and threw it 45, 60 meters sometimes. It looked like nothing. It seemed so simple for him to do that, and said, how does he do that? But I think you couldn't learn anything from it because it was just the way he played. I was a goalkeeper as well at that time, and as I used to joke, I could retire because Peter was there to take over, and I think that was a very good idea.
Everything appeared to be falling into place, but as an amateur, Schmeichel needed to make ends meet. A succession of jobs ensued, from factory work to advertising. And in the heart of Copenhagen, he worked for the World Wildlife Fund, alongside Tommy De Bro.
And my first memory was that he was a very good worker. Of course, we spoke mostly about football. And he then played in an amateur club called Hero. And he was in WWF primarily to earn money for his interest. He was amateur. So when he became professional in Hvidovre, I think, he left us. And later, 10 years after he left us, he wrote this article in our magazine. It means that he still supports us. It was a very, very good memory for me. I can tell my grandchildren that I have worked together with Peter Schmeichel, the famous Dane.
At Hero, Schmeichel had benefited from the knowledge of the former Danish international goalkeeper Per Poulsen, but the time had come to bow to the inevitable, a first professional contract. He didn't have far to move, joining Hvidovre a couple of goal kicks away from Gladsaxe. At 21, he was well on the road to achieving his goal, to be his country's and ultimately the world's #1.
From the first day, in his mind, he could be the best keeper in the world.
Looking back, I think I had the right sort of introduction into football. I started lower level, I moved up. Obviously playing in Brøndby the last 4 years in Denmark, that I played in Denmark, was you know, completely different to anything I've ever played in Denmark.
Schmeichel arrived at Brøndby in 1987, and then there was no doubting his ability. There were question marks surrounding his character. John Jensen was a teammate at the time.
My first impression was that maybe a little bit arrogant, because he believed in himself so much that was unbelievable. It was like, here is a goalkeeper who's going to be the best in the world, even before his season has started at Brøndby.
When he was young, he was little, well, I do everything, I know everything. But he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy. He's completely different outside and then inside. But when he goes in there, he wants to win every time, in training, in game.
Arrogance or assurance, conviction or conceit, Schmeichel's mindset has forever begged the question. The answer often lies in the presence or not of one revealing symptom.
My first match as a professional footballer ever was a quarterfinals in what's now the Champions League against Porto at the Da Santos Stadium in Porto. 80,000 people there, and the largest crowd I've ever played for was 8,000. I was so nervous, I was hoping that we got stuck in traffic. I was hoping that the coach would turn around. I was really scared. And as we walked before the match through the tunnel to view the pitch, I sort of decided that it's crazy because this is what you've worked for. These are the games you want to play. And I decided I would never be nervous again. That was a stepping stone for me. That was something that I could, physically take and work on. So those are the kind of matches I want to play.
10 years later, I can see back again and say, it was not an arrogant, it was a complete Peter Schmeichel who wants exactly know what he wants in the future. And that was to be number one in the world.
Decision made. Schmeichel accepted, adapted and succeeded in helping Brøndby to 5 trophies in 4 years. It was only a matter of time before the phone rang, and when it did, it was almost too good to be true.
Anything that's happened before or after that moment is possibly the biggest moment for me, because that was my dream. From when I was 9, I was dreaming about playing for Manchester United, and now here you have the club coming after you. That was great.
Unbeknown to them at the time, the club was about to become all-conquering, and Schmeichel a key player. For some squad members, though, the Great Dane was still something of an unknown quantity.
To be perfectly honest, I don't think any of us really knew an awful lot of Peter.
By now, Steve Bruce was a United stalwart.
Certainly, I remember the goalkeeping coach at the time, who I think was responsible for bringing Peter to the club, Alan Hodgkinson. I remember him talking about him in glowing terms. That when he had signed or was about to sign, that we'd signed a really, really top goalkeeper.
He was a really, really nice person, very softly spoken, and to be honest, you did wonder, because I was used to English goalkeepers, or British goalkeepers I should say, that whether or not he might have been too nice to being a goalkeeper.
I was worried if I was good enough, because I knew it's going to be different.
The doubts were unfounded. Schmeichel's impact was immediate.
Even after his first 5 or 6 games, the fans took to him straight away.
It was instant. As soon as he walked through the dressing room, he was one of them. Well, I'm Peter Schmeichel, and I'm as big as Man United. That's his attitude, But when you are like that and you've got that presence about you, the one thing you've got to be able to do is keep the goals, and he could do that.
Peter Schmeichel had a huge impact on the Premier League. I think a lot of people think he was probably Sir Alex Ferguson's best buy ever.
Instant impact undoubtedly, but adjusting to life at Old Trafford was not exactly plain sailing.
Coming into England, no breaks anywhere. I mean, you came up to Christmas and it was crazy. It was just mayhem. It was just, Christ, are we going to do this every year? But when you hit the second season and you've been through the whole thing once, and you know what January is like, you know what February is going to be like, that is where you have to prove yourself.
Schmeichel set about doing exactly that, first of all on the training ground.
He had a fierce determination to win. He didn't want a shot at you. He didn't want a shot to save, never mind a goal going in.